Facebook friends and family. Good evening, YouTube family. Welcome to another session with Brian and Janice. We are so delighted to have you again with us on this beautiful Sunday evening. It has been a wonderful weekend. My prayer is that everybody enjoyed their weekend and soaked up some of this good sunshine. We have a lot of good and interesting things to share with you today. We're not going to be focusing on just one subject, but we'll be talking about a variety of things. One of the first things that I want to tell you about that we are so excited about is, I need a drum roll. But anyway, Brian has finished one of the many first books that he started on. And this one is Our Love. This is the children's series that he has written, and it's in honor of our grandchildren. And for those of you that have grandchildren, we would love for you to purchase a copy of this book. It's called Granddaddy and the Super 6 versus the Video Bug. This is Brian's first children's series. It is one of the many books to follow. Also, he is also doing some African books for those of you that are not aware. But this particular book is a first, and we are super excited because it is about kids in today's world dealing with video games, the internet, social media, and how that is so engraved into them that they're more apt to be drawn away from some of the things in society that they really need to focus on. So here is Granddaddy and the Super 6 versus the Video Bug. And this book is about our grandchildren, and we are so excited. So for those of you that don't know, it is available on Amazon. And we would love for those of you that have grandchildren or small children to please go and purchase a copy of Brian's book. It is amazing. It is awesome. Your children, grandchildren, young children will absolutely love it. So that's one thing. Next, I just want to encourage everybody to be encouraged. In spite of everything that's going on in the world today, just know that this is not how it will end. Things are really a little bit, people are feeling anxious. A lot of anxiety is setting in. There's a lot of depression. I see it every day. People are getting worried. They're more concerned about the issues of life. They're concerned about their young black children, especially our black men, when they leave home and they're out going about their way, maybe to work or just out visiting friends, if my child is going to be next. That is what I'm hearing from so many people. We just have to be encouraged, teach them the right thing, tell them the right thing, tell them to always keep their cell phones available. Always let parents know, grandparents, somebody that's close to you, let them know where you are. So that should take off a lot of anxiety from a lot of people. So without further ado, I'm going to let Brian get started with his segment of today's show.
Okay, good evening, Facebook family. Good evening, YouTube family. As Janice has said, we do want to promote the book series of Granddaddy and the Super 6. That book series, I'm already working on book number 2, just about complete. What the Granddaddy and the Super 6 book series does, it deals with an array of issues that our children will face just in society growing up. The Video Bug book, just to kind of give you a little brief summary, deals with something that all of our children battle with today, and that's being locked in front of a video game of some sort or some device, electronic device, and then having to try to break away from that. When our children are locked into those devices, it underdevelops them as it relates to social skills. So children that are constantly on video games, they are constantly locked into an electronic device. They are very, very diminished when it comes to social skills. So one thing that the book does is it deals with the fact that this is not a enigma. This is a commonplace thing amongst our children.
Yes.
It's something that we see every day. If you have a child, it's real easy to put a electronic device in their hand.
Yes.
And kind of, say, hey, do your thing on there, play your little games, and it diverts their attention to something else. And it's a way that adults parent now by way of not having to physically interact with the child so much.
Exactly.
So that's what this particular first book in the series of Granddaddy and the Super Six, that's what this deals with. It is written on a child's level where children will understand it. The illustrations in there are dynamic. So we are just excited about the whole book series. So if I have some friends out there that would like to contact me, want me to come and to share the book, read the book with your children, if I have some educators out there that would like for me also to come and to talk and to bring the Super Six even with me, my grandchildren, then just let us know. So we are excited about what is taking place. Also, like Janice said, scheduled in June, I will have my first African history book and Black Perspectives book finished. It is going to be phenomenal. I'm really, really excited about this book. For those of you all that know me as it relates to history, I think history is everything. And I will echo our ancestor, John Henry Clark. People that do not know their history are like trees blowing in the wind without direction. So we have to know our history because history repeats itself. And that is one thing that we're going to deal with today. We're going to kind of take a little dive back into the past.
Yes.
And we're going to deal with some history that is reflective of some things that are going on today in what we know as this governmental system and in this governmental cycle of voting. And there's a lot of uproar. There's a lot of discontent right now as it relates to Georgia in particular, being the state that have written some voting laws that are considered to be oppressive, but this is not a new thing for Georgia. This is a repetitive thing for Georgia.
Yes.
So we're going to be just kind of diving in and looking at some of those things as well. So we want to thank everybody that's tuning in with us. We see Brother Jermichael. Thank you, son, for tuning in. We see Margaret. Thank you,
Margaret Mosley. Hi, Margaret.
For tuning in and watching. So we're going to go ahead and dive into part of the dilemma, some of the things that we saw unfolding with the senator, the state representative that was turned away several weeks ago in Georgia, black female. We need our black men there on post.
Yes, we do.
Anywhere.
Yes, we do.
And that's no matter where our black women are.
Yes.
Be it in a state house, be it on the street corner, it doesn't matter. We saw what happens when there's not reinforcement in place to support our women and to be the strength of our women. So, but let's move to the meat of that subject. And the meat of that subject is that some of the voting laws that Georgia has put in place is considered to be oppressive. And this is being said by the state legislature not so much, quote unquote, even though it has gone national and everybody is looking at Georgia.
Right.
The state legislature is saying that some of the laws that were put in place by the governor are oppressive laws, that were signed into law are oppressive laws. Okay. One of those laws in particular that everybody hears about, and this is going to be a law, we need to come to grips with this and accept this, that there is going to be federal law written at some point that mandates everyone to have a form of voter ID.
Exactly, Brian.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
And you know, we just have to be in place to deal with that appropriately. If you are required, and this is the argument of that, if you are required to have a license to operate a vehicle legally, then you should also be required to have some form of ID to participate
in the voting process.
In the voting process. Now that is the argument.
That's the argument.
That's being made.
Yes.
Okay. So not saying either way. For me personally, it would not matter either way. And the reason that I say I don't have a dog in that fight, because the whole system needs to be revamped. You know, I am a strong supporter of voting because of the ancestors that gave their lives, and I understand the magnitude of how voting can shift decisions that are made on a local level first, because all politics are local. We must remember that. So when we get involved in the process, we could put people in place, or representatives in place, that actually can shift the tide by being able to undo certain laws and write new laws that will benefit the community that they represent and the constituency base that they represent. Okay, so now let's look at Georgia. All right, if you will. Georgia is a peculiar state. Okay. The reason that I say it's peculiar is because historically it has always been, along with Alabama and Mississippi, one of the most racist states in the Confederate States. Okay? So Georgia was a Confederate state, and it was, along with Mississippi, Alabama, and South Carolina, one of the most racist states in the Confederate States. Okay? What makes Georgia also interesting is this is not the first time that Georgia have sought to suppress the African American vote by any means necessary as it relates to their political agenda in support of a president or in support of federal laws and regulations. Okay, so what do you mean, Brian? After Emancipation Proclamation was put into effect, okay, in 1865. It was actually written in 1862, okay? It was put in place in 1865. After 1865, in the process of electing black representatives for each state, there was more black representatives per state elected between the years of 1868 and 1872 that has ever been elected in history. In Georgia, there was 41 black representatives elected to the state legislature.
Wow.
Okay, in 1868. Very, very powerful within itself. Now, here's the kick to that. After Georgia, after the 13th, 14th and the 15th Amendment is put in place. 15th Amendment allows the voting rights of African American men. Okay? After this first round of being able to participate in the political system in Georgia, in them putting in 41 representatives, which was a lot, but was not the most of the southern states that had succeeded and made up the Confederate states. Okay, and also let me just throw this in there. The Confederate or the southern states that made up the Confederate states, part of them being readmitted to the Union was that they had to change their constitution and put laws in place that allowed African Americans to have the right to vote. Georgia was one of the last places to do that.
The very last.
Okay, so
yes.
Georgia held out basically to the end.
Yes, they did.
And fought this thing. Now, here's the interesting thing. After those 41 representatives were elected, Georgia comes back and they write laws saying that the election of these 41 officials are basically reverse discrimination.
Wow.
Okay? And in the process of doing that, they remove 31 of the 41 elected officials that were black in the state legislature.
They left 10.
Okay. Left 10. But this starts what I call the Georgia debacle. It's not just what we're looking at in 2021. This started in 1868.
Wow.
So the Georgia debacle continues today.
It does.
Okay. Now,
we just saw it.
We just saw it, and it is still going on.
Yes.
Listen, Georgia did not turn blue. Okay? You all need to understand that.
Say it again,
Georgia
Brian.
did not turn blue. What happened with Georgia is that the majority of votes, as it relates to the president of the United States, in that consensus, the minority outvoted the so-called majority. The minority population of the state went out in larger numbers than the majority. The state did not turn blue. The number of votes that were the majority of votes outnumbered the red votes. Okay, does everybody understand that? Well, Brian, why do you say that the state did not turn blue? Because the state of Georgia right now still has a Republican governor, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate. They are considered to be what we call the trifecta, one of the trifecta states in the South. Trifecta means that the state is controlled by a fully Republican party legislature, which includes the governor, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. Okay, so Georgia technically is not a blue state. Georgia is still red, just like Alabama. Alabama has a Republican governor, Republican House, and a Republican Senate. Florida, Republican governor, Republican House, Republican Senate. South Carolina, Republican governor, Republican House, Republican Senate. Okay, I can go on. Missouri, Republican governor, Republican House, Republican Senate. Okay, we go. Louisiana, Republican governor, Republican House, Republican Senate. Arkansas, Republican governor, Republican House, Republican Senate. I'm throwing these off the top of my head.
Yeah, but you know.
You have to do the research to make sure that Brian's correct.
But you are.
South Carolina, Republican governor, Republican House, Republican Senate. So what am I showing you, family? What I'm showing you is a lot of these states, by consensus, had a large number of blue votes, but they did not turn the state blue. The state is still red because it is Republican controlled. So now, let me go back to history. Okay, at this time in history, Georgia being one of the Confederate states that succeeded from the Union, okay, Georgia was predominantly Democratic in process as it relates to their representatives. All of the succeeding states were majority Democratic controlled states. Now, all of those states that I just named that are trifecta states, what we consider in politics as trifecta states, were some of the same states that succeeded from the Union to form the Confederate States of America. President being Jefferson Davis, okay, who was from the state of Mississippi. Ironically, the first black senator that takes the seat of Jefferson Davis after he relinquishes his seat to be the president of the Confederate States is Hiram Rebels,
who is a black man.
The first black senator of Mississippi takes the seat of the racist Jefferson Davis. And guess who Hiram Rebels goes his first speech on the Senate floor of the House? He gives a speech in his debate to readmit Georgia to the Union. Based on what? Based on them having rewritten their Constitution.
Yes.
And based on Georgia, out of all of the states, had the worst conditions. Now, this is based on Hiram Rebels, who says that these people are downtrodden, they're poor, but they have been loyal.
Yes.
Also from Georgia,
yes.
One significant thing in history is that a lot of the black men went and fought for the Union Army, okay? Became part of the Union Army to defend the United States and to free Georgia from slavery. So Georgia played a significant role there. So we see that the oppression of Georgia as it relates to black people has always been a battle, family. This is not a battle that has just started. Mm-hmm. This battle has been going on for over a century now. You understand? And listen, we have the same faction as it relates to this terroristic type of mentality by political leaders that control Georgia to continue to oppress those who are descendants of slaves, to continue to oppress brown people, to continue to oppress whoever is not considered to be the white majority. Georgia is still today falls into that category of being one of the oppressive states that will not relinquish power as it relates to their control of their state. Now, understanding that there are two senators, one Jewish, one black,
yes,
for Georgia. Okay? The good thing is there's different representation there. Okay? You have progressive representation there.
Yes, you do.
Okay? The bad thing is that it's only 2 votes. Okay? So, all politics start on a local level. Mm-hmm. The constituents of Georgia are going to be most affected by local politics, by local political leaders that are in place. So if the House and the Senate and the governor are all Republican, then guess who makes the laws, regardless of what 2 senators are in place? All politics are local. Okay?
You've told us that many times.
Yes, and I will continue to say that. Why? Because federal law covers a broad range of issues that relates to every state.
Every
it
state.
does not cover specifics
To one
concerning
state. Yes.
one state. So let's give an example of that. Infrastructure, that's a broad category
Yes.
that covers all states.
Yes.
Okay, so when they are voting on infrastructure, those two votes, whether or not to improve infrastructure, so much money to be allocated to infrastructure, that's what those two votes from Georgia does.
Well, it's the same thing with the stimulus packet, the CARES Act.
Yes, same exact
Didn't
thing.
just center one or two states.
Right.
It was for
It
everybody.
covers a broad range. Okay, so those are two votes that will help Georgia in retrospect as it relates to infrastructure. You understand?
Yes.
But the more pressing issues that they deal with on a local level, that is the responsibility of local government to deal with, they will not affect. Okay? There could be an indirect influence as it relates to them. But what we have to understand is when we send representatives to federal government to serve in those positions,
yes,
they're really lobbying on behalf of their state as it relates to monetary, investment into the states. They're not lobbying based on what is happening on a local level politically, quote unquote, concerning the constituents. Okay. They're lobbying for the whole state. You understand? Okay, so that is where most people are confused. We have to understand, and I'm going to keep saying this until we get this, that this system is broken.
It is.
Okay.
Very much so.
The federal government, after the 13th Amendment was put in place, had to mandate states that had succeeded that they will do this or they will not be allowed to participate in the union. Now, what does that mean? How are they affected? That means that sanctions would have been imposed on those states that had succeeded from the union, and basically monetary, investment to those states would be cut off. So part of the participation of those states now being accepted back into the union, quote unquote, was more so as it relates to the financial gains. Okay? Because at that time, the southern states were financially better off than the northern states. Exactly. So anytime we talk about federal government being in place to deal with certain things as it relates to state government, local government, it is in place to deal with it from a financial aspect concerning all the states being able to function, to run, to make sure that infrastructure is kept up, to be competitive as it relates to whatever their import, export products are, be it cotton, be it trees, be it peanuts. It's the federal government is sort of like an overseer, if you will,
yes,
of the whole plantation. This is the analysis that I'll give. So the federal government is the overseer of the whole plantation. The president is the master of the plantation. You understand?
Yes.
I
got it. You had to use that analogy, Brian.
It's a true analysis.
I know.
And the Senate and the Congress, they are also put in place. I'm going to tell you, the Senate could be referred to as the missionaries or the mission societies. Those were the societies that put majority of the school land grant proposals in place, where we've seen the HBCUs take advantage of those developments. That came through land grants, federal land grants. So the Senate would be considered back in that time as the mission society. If we're looking at it from a aspect of slavery, we're looking at it from an aspect of the creation of this country and the institution of this government, then we can look at it and give that analytical perspective and say that The president is the master of the house. Okay, the Senate they're the missionaries, and then you got your overseers of the plantation, which could be your Congress. All right, that makes up that, and then you got your field Negroes. You understand what I'm saying? Some of the house Negroes that have been, allowed to come in the house and serve and tote the tray and put the towel over their arm. That's in the Congress. You understand what I'm saying? That's just what they did. They're serving the master. Mm-hmm. They're there to serve the master. They're not there to serve the field Negro. You understand? So the field Negro still gets left out. Mm. So what are we looking at? When you're talking about parishioners in Georgia, parishioners in Alabama, parishioners in Mississippi, it doesn't matter where you go. The field Negroes are always last to receive anything.
Wow.
Okay, that's why black people right now are considered to be at the bottom level of everything. Last week we went through some statistics as it relates to black men. Black men, as when it comes to unemployment, had the highest rate amongst all ethnic groups in this country. You understand? Mm-hmm. So black men, as far as education, had the highest dropout rates, had the highest rates concerning not receiving a quality education than any other ethnic group in this country. The field Negro is always left out. Yes. So now what I will say to my friends, and I have family members that stay in Georgia, and family that's in Georgia, don't be upset by the overseers still controlling the plantation, because that's what the governor, the House, and the Senate represent.
And that's what they do.
And that's what they're doing. And the field Negroes that are in Georgia are crying now.
Yes.
Because they're figuring out and
they're trying to figure out.
They're coming to grips with reality that we still don't have any power.
Exactly.
That's okay? It. And that is the reality that we all have to deal with, regardless of what we think we have overcome. We have overcome some things, but my brothers and sisters, I said this, when we look at it as a whole people in a whole community,
yes,
we are worse off today
than we were
in 1868 up to 1872, where we had the most black representation in federal House, as far as the Congress and the Senate, than we have ever had in U.S. history. You can look this information up.
Sure can.
So to say that we are better off, and I understand it was a push back then. 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment.
Yes.
Apart from the terrorism of the Ku Klux Klan and the group called the Red Shirts, which were the counterparts to the Ku Klux Klan, that dealt with it more so from a political side as opposed to a physical terrorist side.
So who might be them now? Who might be those people now?
I think those people now are your Mitch McConnells. Oh. Those are your red shirts now. Mm-hmm. That has power and position, that says that no, we're not going to do anything that will change the dynamic of what this Constitution says. Okay? They are the red shirts. They deal with it from a political, they are political racists. You understand?
Yes.
Which targets a certain faction of the citizenry of these United States. But still, we're not considered to be citizens. So part of that voting ID issue is that if you cannot obtain a voter's ID, then you're not a citizen, and you're not in the local arena, you're not considered to be a Georgian. Okay? Same way in Alabama. If you cannot obtain a voter's ID in the state of Alabama, you are not a citizen of this country, and you are not considered to be an Alabamian that has rights in this state. Okay? So we need to go back and we need to take another look at it. Okay, we need to revisit, yes. Redo some things as it relates to our understanding and revisit some things as it relates to what is in place that was said about us as it relates to being citizens of this country and having all rights as any other citizens. We're still lacking when it comes to that. Okay? And it's not that we're lacking purposely. We are lacking because the system, as Georgia found out, there I go back again, that is in place, that is still controlled by the trifecta, which are the Republicans, says, no, we're not going to let you participate. We dictate who we want to participate and who we don't want to participate. And if we want to shut you out legally, we'll shut you out legally. It is no different from the Shelby case that we had in Alabama some years ago. It is the same thing. If we need to gerrymander the district so that we get more votes to put our people in place, then we will do that. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. Take us to court. We'll fight you and we'll win, because guess what? We have the judges in place. All right. So what we have to do, family, is understand, I say this all the time, how politics works. And then we got to stop playing with politics. We got to stop putting people in place that are sissified in legislatures, in the local legislature, and in the federal legislature. We got to stop putting weak black men and weak black women in there that's going to go there and pontificate and get into all of the decorum and the, I guess you would say, you know, the, what would we say? The etiquette portion is what I'm looking for. Okay, that will go there, and all my fellow delegates and my fellow colleagues, I stand before you, Honorable Speaker, to make this debate. I feel, no, I ain't got time for that. Let me tell you like it is. Black people are suffering. You are continuing to not only oppress black people by putting your knee on their neck with one individual, but you got your knee on everybody's neck.
That's exactly right, Brian.
And we got to stop looking at these bourgeois Negroes that are on CNN and that are on all of these other media outlets thinking that they're going to tell you the truth. No, they're reading a script.
That's exactly right.
They are propagandizing. They are telling you what their master wants them to say to you.
That's exactly right.
Because they don't control anything. Their master is paying them good money to say to you what they're saying. So we need to get a backbone. When it comes to voting, listen, preachers have their place. Dr. King had his place. But there are no more Dr. Kings. I don't understand why we continue to look for people that, you know, for somehow we think that they really have our best interest in mind, and they do not have our best interest in mind. What they have learned how to be is good lobbyists for a party interest and not your interest. The DNC put these people in place. So when we look at these folks, even now, with this voter movement that's going on, we have to understand that the DNC is lining the pockets of these black people to continue to feed us collard greens and chicken for our votes. You understand what I'm saying? They don't care no more truly about black interests. They care about black people getting out and voting Democrat to support an interest of the Democratic Party, which does not include black people. So Malcolm said it best. The Democrat and the Republican, they are the same entity. Okay? One lies to your face, and one goes behind your back and talks to your friend and tell your friend the lie instead of telling you the lie directly to your face. It's the same lie. It's the same thing. It's the same eagle. Right?
It's the same plane, just
It's the same eagle, two different, the same wings on the same bird.
one is on the right,
and one is on the left. That's
yes.
it. But the same blood flows through both
Both of
wings,
them.
right?
That's exactly right.
So we have to understand that. So what happened to Georgia historically has happened before, is what I'm showing you, and it is going to happen again. Because the powers that be that are in place is still the white nationalist movement. And see, in 1866, even though the party at that time was all Democratic parties that put those things in place, they were the white nationalists of that particular time. Okay, they were the ones that were still in favor of slavery. Okay, the Republican Party is developed and put in place in 1851. That is your anti-faction as relates to slavery. Okay, so all of your representatives from that time that were black after the passing of the 13th Amendment were all Republicans. 99.9% of the black votes were all Republicans. Okay, so we see the transition of blacks. We didn't see the transition of blacks voting Democrat until FDR comes into place. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? And FDR did what he could, but when we really go back and we look at FDR, even some of his policies were very racist.
Yes.
Because he maintained the policies that were in place, that were put in place by, at one time, the Democratic Party, which was the white nationalist party. He maintained some of those laws that were put in place by them as it related to the white constituency concerning the veterans and their families, which black people could not participate in.
That's exactly right.
Okay, Social Security, that was a development from the Democrat. That was originally out of the mind of the Democratic White Nationalist Party, not just FDR. If we go back and we look at it, you had the Communist Party and the Socialist Party that also had influence there, but you also had the White Nationalist Party, which have never died. Okay? They do not wear their hoods in public as much as they used to back then.
That's it.
Okay? But when you look at a Strom Thurmond, when you look at a Mitch McConnell, when you look at these people, they are Ku Klux Klan without the hoods. That's the bottom line. So it's this game that's being played with black people's emotions. What I'm saying to black people is stop thinking that you can participate in a system that was never originally designed with you in mind to be a full citizen. When this system was designed, it was designed with you in mind as being a slave forever. And until, it doesn't matter how many amendments, because one thing with my book that's going to be coming out in June, as it relates to black people, and the title of the book is Where Do Black People Go From Here? Okay, a practical guide to survival in the 21st century. That's the title of the book. I actually break down the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, and I actually show that the original wording that is there now from those amendments not only still perpetuated slavery and promoted slavery, but it was put in fashion and put in place in such a way to where slavery would always remain in place in some form in this country concerning black people. Not concerning the immigrants that are coming over here.
Exactly.
But concerning black people.
Who've been here.
Okay. Who built this country.
That's exactly right.
So, when you are no longer a slave, and when you push yourself to be something that this what they call instrument of vitality. It's a living organism. They called it all type of things. When this Constitution is no longer supportive of you when you take yourself out of the slave category, the only thing left to do then is to eliminate you. Okay, so the subtle practice of genociding a race starts with the black man. I have a book upstairs called The Black Man, Obsolete, Dangerous, and Out of Practice. And I may deal with some of the chapters from this book. Yes. But listen, the way to genocide a group of people is to take the black male out the equation. Last week, when we dealt with the black woman,
yes,
and we dealt with the exclusion of the black man. Based on this Goldman Sachs deal. Yes. It is another way of subtly genociding the black family.
Yeah. The black family as a whole. Right. Yes.
And that is by removing the black man. So when this Constitution can no longer support slaves and you push yourself out of the slave category, then now it has to replace you. So now another family has to be developed. You understand? Yes. And the black man has to continue to be incarcerated at an all-time high. The black man has to continue to have his neck crushed by a knee of a police.
Or killed, shot.
Or shot. Okay? Whatever source of violence.
By any means necessary that they can get rid of the black man.
Yes. To eradicate that species, then it must be done. Because now he is removing himself or putting himself above this living, breathing document that was put in place to keep him a slave. Yes. You understand? Yes. So we have to understand exactly what's going on. Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, all the southern states that are surrounding these trifecta states that are Republican controlled. If we don't change the way we think, okay, this was an interesting note in the research that we did. Okay, the state of Georgia from 1992, yes, up until 2002, 2003,
yeah, 2003
was a blue state.
Yes, it was.
Watch this. They did not have the most votes as it relates to blue votes, okay? But they were blue states. They were blue states because they were controlled by a Democratic governor at that time, controlled by a Democratic House, and a Democratic Senate from 1992 all the way up to 2002.
2003.
And going into 2003, okay? Guess who the president was at that time? William Jefferson Clinton. Yeah. Okay? The so-called first black president, which we know he was a staunch, low-down, racist dog, in my opinion. There was nothing good that the Clintons did for black people, but play a saxophone. I can do that. You understand what I'm saying? I do it pretty good. So Clinton put in the worst trade laws, he put in the worst education laws, he put it in the worst crime bill.
3 strikes you're out.
Which by the way was signed and endorsed by another racist that's in the office right now named Joe Biden under his terms. So, in my opinion, see, we have to look at the game. Now, from 2003 all the way up to 2021, Georgia has been controlled by a Republican governor, yes, Republican Senate, and Republican House. Okay? Pay attention, brothers and sisters, to what is really going on. Do not be fooled by the buffoonery of black folk in the media hyping something up that has no significance to our condition and will do nothing to change our condition. The black bourgeois that think everything is okay, do not care about the people in the ghetto. Yeah, they get in an uproar when a black man is shot, and yeah, they want to see laws change. But if you really get down to the nuts and bolts with what makes us and go to the root of the problem with black people, and that is dealing with economics. Now, all of them crying about black men being shot, but none of them are crying about reparations that should be paid and that are owed to black people. Economics. None of them are really on board as it relates to mass reparations being paid to the African people of this country who are descendants of the slaves. They are not fighting for that, but they'll push for crime bills. They push for old silly stuff like gun laws. None of that is not going to change, and none of that affects the root of the problem when it comes to black people. What affects the root of the problem is that 100% of the wealth of black people was maldistributed into the hands of white people in slavery. We had no money, and all of the money we made went to the white man and his descendants.
Yes.
And until you deal with that, everything else is trivial.
Yes, it is.
Yes. That is what needs to be dealt with. So we got to get a mindset to change the political game. Put people in place
that's going to fight,
that desires to see the whole system change, and that desires to see black people as a whole come up. Okay? We have to deal with that faction of it. If we do not deal with that, then black people are going to continue to be the subordinate class.
Yes.
We are going to continue to be the marginalized, dehumanized, ostracized class of people in this country that will slowly be weeded out of everything. Law. We're already being weeded out of the law. What I tell people, affirmative action was a white law. Okay, affirmative action after the first 4 years did not work for black people because everybody else jumped on board and started claiming affirmative action. So it started dealing with gay issues, it started dealing with immigrant issues, it started dealing with everything except black people. Okay, so black people now have been placated. Black people, our place has been taken by the diversity movement that is now coming in.
Yes.
Also the LGBTQSVWXYZ. Whatever your preference is, that's your preference.
That's your preference.
But it is taking the place of black people. You understand? So we have to get back to understanding history.
Well, immigrants have taken the place of us, Brian.
Well, immigrants have always been here. Right?
Yes, they've been here.
So immigrants have always been here. So when we look at the 1789 immigration bill, immigrants have always been here. The 1789 immigration bill pushed for immigrants to come.
Yes, it did.
Why did it push at that particular time? Because there was an onslaught of rebellions by the slaves that were taking place. So there were not slaves were walking off of plantations. Yes. Slaves were refusing to work. Slaves were rising up against their slave masters and plantation owners. So the 1789 immigration law made it possible for more white immigrants to come in to settle the land because slaves were rebelling. Okay, so we have to understand this. It's important to understand history because history teaches us where we've been, where we are, and where we need to go.
That's exactly right.
That's Dr. John Henry Clark as well. So I will continue to encourage you all and to bring you information to wake you up, to help you understand that there is nothing new under the sun. What you're seeing with Georgia came out of an old playbook. What we will see happen in Alabama within the next 2 terms.
Yes, we will.
After our senile governor is no longer in office. we will see something out of the same old playbook. And I will deal with Alabama history. I have an infinity for Alabama history. So I will deal with that. Alabama is one of the crookedest states when it comes to politics in the Union. Georgia also falls into that category. You understand?
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't matter about how much the Mecca can do, Atlanta, and it doesn't matter that Atlanta has a black mayor. She is still a subject of the governor. She is still a slave to the master. And that is the bottom line. You understand? Okay, so, and we have ignorant black businesses and owners in Atlanta that have fallen prey and victim to the system, and then they turn around and the same thing that they fell prey to, they use to rape and rob their people. To say that they have arrived and to say that we're doing well, we're getting money. No, what you're doing is allowing the system to use you to rape and rob your people. That's what you're doing. So this thing that we call politics have never been set up for us to win. And it's not until, I'll keep saying this, until we get enough tenacity within ourselves and get angry enough to say, no, we're going to break away from the system altogether, and we're going to form a state party that's all black, a national party that's all black, whatever we need to do. And it needs to be a consensus amongst all black people. Not us just getting our little pockets of organizations saying that we're doing this, we're doing that, and trying to outdo each other. My organization doing it. Who cares about that? Because overall, your organization is not doing anything if unemployment for black men are still high, if our black children are still being disproportionately uneducated, not educated, uneducated, by being taught the white person system without any of our history being implemented into the classroom, if our women are still being discriminated against on the jobs, off the jobs, we are not winning by your organization being successful. What we have to do at some point is recognize that we are stronger together than we are divided apart, saying that I'm doing this and you're doing that. No. Business analysis here. If I buy 2% of your business and I put in $20,000 to get that 2%, and then you, on my return, pay me 3% every month, then I just put $20,000 into a business that may have needed that for marketing, may have needed that for payroll, but it strengthened the business at that time.
Yes.
That may have helped the business get over the hump and now become the $1 million business. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
For a small percentage, but we all win together. Same way in our community. Okay, so I'll stop my pontification. Okay. We are almost an hour in.
We're done.
But I wanted to give you all that history and show you all that this thing with Georgia is not new. What we saw, laughable, disgraceful, yes, all of those things. Laughable because nobody stepped up and defended our sister. Disgraceful that she had it to be treated that way. Exactly. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. Also laughable that we think that we have power to change their system. You understand what I'm saying? And disgraceful at the same time to think that we have power and that we did something so spectacular that these white people are going to pay us back. That's not what they're about. No, they're not about that. They are about keeping you slaves. Like I said, when you go back and you look at that Constitution, you look at that 13th, 14th Amendment, that's what is there. It was about keeping slaves intact.
Wow.
Okay? So I will end with that.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching. And I appreciate my family. My son Trey Robert Martin III, my sister Sonia. Thank you, Sonia
Hello, guys.
Taylor. Our dear friend Shakira
Yes.
and Shiraj. Thank
Yes.
you all. Cynthia West, I saw you watching. We appreciate you guys. Terry
Yes.
Ray, I appreciate you. We thank you all for watching. Please share this video. Please share. We have to get it.
Yes.
We have to get it.
Peace, family.
We love you guys. See you next week.